Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Dave, Season 1, Episode 8, PIBE, which I found out stands for Play It By Ear. And thankfully, it is explained in the episode what PIBE means. But I had to look it up. I had to research what PIBE is. It's also a soccer player's name. But I figured it out. Play It By Ear is the episode of Dave I'm going to be talking about today. If you are not, if you haven't watched the show, Dave, I will be talking about every aspect of this episode, spoiling it, revealing what happens. So if you don't want to be spoiled on the show, Dave, which I highly recommend, obviously, funny comedy on FX, on Hulu, 2 seasons out now. Check it out. But this is your warning. Let's get into it. Starting off this episode with Dave and Mike doing their thing, taking meetings with different record labels, trying to get signed. I mean, Mike has been successful very, very much so far with what he's been doing with Dave. From getting him to do the My Dick Sucks challenge, which helped him kind of get eyeballs back on what he's doing, and now trying to sell him to different record labels. He's got a good guy in his corner with Mike. And of course, Mike knows that the music video My Dick Sucks is what put Lil Dicky on the map, introduced him to the world, and then followed up by the Somebody Suck Me challenge. And now his next project, Dave wants to do an album called Penis. And of course, as they go from record label to record label, nobody understands Dave, as very few people in this whole series seem to, and is something that is very common with Dave to be infuriated by, is the people that don't understand what Dave is trying to do. Gaeta's mom understood him. Gaeta's mom is probably one of the few people in this entire series that has understood what Dave is trying to do with his art, with his hip hop. But other than that, misunderstood artist. But from a comedic standpoint, they just think he's a joke. And every time he brings up the name of his new album, they just laugh. And the way they treat him, and they're trying to communicate with him. And then also Dave is going into these meetings being the typical prima donna superstar that he's not even anywhere near, being ready to reject every offer that comes his way. And there's even one of the executives at one of these meetings who's trying to relate, who thinks that Dave is like some disgusting misogynistic dude, which could be mistaken by, if you were just to know him by his music. His girlfriend, Allie, misunderstood him for a moment in an episode where she thought Dave was the person that he portrays himself to be online and in his music. And this guy hands him an offer, as if this offer is the studio about to suck Dave's dick. But Dave didn't like it. And his rejection of it told this man, this feels a lot more like you're fucking me in the ass than it does sucking my dick. And he tries to take a bite, but he's got the whole underbite or overbite. What does he have? He has an underbite? I don't know. Hilarious. But he does acting as well, which, these record labels, these companies need to understand the massive talent that Dave knows he is, that knows he's going to be. They finally go, and Dave is kind of talking for himself, describing himself to these executives, which I don't even know if they're executive, but these people, these representatives at these different labels. And he compares himself to Kanye, but white. So he's kind of more like Eminem, but like lovable. And really trying to compare himself to some of the most successful rappers, hip-hop artists. But I would say missing the mark quite a bit. Actually, and trying to promote himself and his physique as a positive, as a selling point. It's like Dave doesn't even understand his own brand at this point. Like his perspective of who he is, how he sees himself, obviously we see how he thinks of himself in this episode and just how he responds and treats to people throughout the whole series. It doesn't seem like he understands who he is as an artist yet. He does more so than most people, but he himself is stuck, not understanding his true voice. So finally he gets to a place where they say they're going to, Dave, which is great, which every artist should want, is to have creative freedom, 100% creative freedom, not want companies, corporations, uncreative people to get their hands in and try to change his work. Which, of course, they say yes, which who knows how much you can trust a record label or corporation to honor what they say, unless it's in paper and you have good lawyers. They can kind of do whatever they want. But they say they're going to keep their hands off the creative process, that Dave's got his own creative freedom, and that they will just be his machine to get him seen, to kind of get his music out there, to do the marketing, really. A lot of what they're doing. But also be able to get him on, recommended lists on all the streaming platforms and all this stuff. And the studio offers to set him up with Benny Blanco, who's a famous producer. I got to say, a little caveat here, just a little personal information about me. I've said it before on these episodes. I'm going to say it again. I am highly, despite the fact that I love this show, I'm very, very ignorant, highly ignorant to who famous people are today. So I assume all of these characters that are introduced in cameos are famous, but I don't recognize any of them. Justin Bieber, who is in this episode, the only one, but would not have recognized him if I had seen him in person on the street. Like, all of these people I would not recognize and know who they are. I've heard their names, some of them I haven't. So please forgive my ignorance. Or make fun of it. I don't care. Because I love this show regardless of all the famous people they get to have cameos. I really wouldn't notice and don't care. But anyway, Benny Blanco's a real guy. And I even had to Google at one point while watching this show, not maybe this episode, but at some point I'm Googling, who is this guy? Because he is great. Benny Blanco, the real person in this show, is hilarious. He is hilarious because Dave agrees to meet up with this producer, and he gets introduced. This character is introduced by doing the most epic "Somebody Suck Me." The most elaborate "Somebody Suck Me." And instantly, you can tell that these two people are meant for each other. That Dave and Benny Blanco are meant to create together. Because the sense of humor that Benny Blanco has and the creativity that he has to not only understand the "Somebody Suck Me" competition, but to come up with such an elaborate, beautiful example of how to do a "Somebody Suck Me" was hilarious. An amazing part. The Many Faces is an ongoing abstract ink portrait series that I started many years ago. I release a new face every day, But go to inspireddisorder.com to check them out. So many available. But as a listener to The Ray Taylor Show, you can save 10% when you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out. So go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. Go check them out. Browse the entire collection. And when you decide on a piece, or maybe multiple pieces, make sure you use coupon code INSPIRED when you check out, and you'll save 10%. As a big thank you for checking out my work, for collecting my work, and for listening to The Ray Taylor Show. And with that said, let's get back to the show. Of course, Bieber is hanging out at Benny Blanco's house. So again, Bieber's there listening to, watching Dave's My Dick Sucks video. Giant house. Dave's like, whoa, awestruck. You know, gets to meet Bieber. Bieber invites Dave to a party that he's having at his house. You know, and Dave trying to play it cool. Say he's going to PIBE it, which thankfully, play it by ear, explained, despite the fact that I Googled it prior to watching the episode. And if you remember last week's episode, I was very confused with PIBE, but play it by ear. Just trying to be cool. But of course, Dave wants to go. Dave is like finally getting, like he is one step away from being that person that he wants to be, from his dream becoming a reality. Right? He's working with a giant producer, which there's a funny scene where Dave and Benny are going back and forth, kind of talking shit to each other. And, you know, Benny's like, well, how many hits do you have? And he's like, I don't know how you want to rank those hits. So it's like, well, there's a publication called Billboard, and they do rankings. I got 20 of them. How many do you have? So it's like, not only do they click instantly with sense of humor, but they click also with the sense of humor of talking shit. Like, it's not only just the somebody suck me challenge, it's the shit talking where these guys are two formidable opponents and beautiful to watch. So anyway, Bieber's out. Dave and Benny kind of going back and forth, sitting down, and you know, Benny's telling Dave, it's like, you could be that guy, like you're good enough to be that guy, sure. And Dave, you know, tries to show, he has to hear more of Dave's raps, and it's like Dave pulls out, like, doesn't really have anything solid. He doesn't have any finished work, but he has something recorded on his phone, him doing a rap, and it's, you know, fast. It's a fast rap. It's a rap where Dave is trying to show his technical abilities in rapping. And Benny's like, it's trash. What are you trying to do? There's like nothing. There's no shape. There's no form to it. And I think that's probably when they got into their Who's Got More Billboard charted songs. And then Benny also criticizing the beats that Dave uses, calling him white, which is hilarious because, you know, I mean, we all know Els is black, but also we all know that Els is, you know, comes from he's not from the streets. Like there's no edge to Els as opposed to Gata, who's dealt with more adversity, dealt with more. He hasn't, like, Els has experienced a bit of privilege growing up, just a bit. I mean, he still probably has had to deal with a bunch of issues with the amount of melanin that's in his skin. But as far as the differences between Els and Gata, Gata's probably lived a little bit more difficult life and has developed a little bit more of an edge, where Els is being called white by Benny Blanco. And then Benny's girlfriend comes down, who kind of looks like Dave's girlfriend, just dressed in I think she's just wearing a bikini in this. Which I don't know if that was intentional. Kind of showing Dave. It's like Dave is is putting these people up on a pedestal and maybe not understanding what he already has, being grateful for, the person that he already has in his life. But she comes down, she mentions how they both look similar, and it's because they're both Jewish. But it's a fun scene where we get introduced to Benny Blanco, who is, instantly like an amazing character, an amazing addition to this show. And for somebody to not be traditional, I don't know if he's done other acting. I was surprised. I thought it was an actor playing somebody, but it turns out that it's, Benny Blanco is Benny Blanco, that he's playing himself, which happens in a lot of this show, and I'm just too ignorant to notice. But I think that's better for me. Maybe. I don't know. So cut to back at Dave's place, Dave and Mike's place. Mike is on the barbecue grill. Gata's there. Els is there. Emma, Allie, the whole crew is there. Kind of the only time we see the whole crew, because Emma and Gata is their only scene in this show, in this episode anyway. And Mike's happy. Mike's happy that he did good because Dave is pumped. He's doing a dance. He's happy that not only that Benny Blanco's cool as fuck, but he got invited to Justin Bieber's house party. And of course, not knowing what the rules and the etiquette are, he doesn't want to invite anybody. His girlfriend, Allie, assumes she's a huge Bieber fan, as most women are, of a certain age. And she's excited to go, but Dave's like, I don't know if I can bring anybody. So he doesn't invite her, so she's like, I'm going to go watch the football game with Els. We're going to go to a bar. Gata and Emma just don't want to go. I don't even think Mike was even close to being invited. Probably wouldn't have wanted to go anyway. The last time they hung out, when they had the show for Meek Mill out in Philadelphia, and they went to the club, Mike was just working the whole time. So I guess would just be assumed that he wouldn't want to go. But, Allie, since she's not going, Dave gives her a little description of the essence of Justin Bieber, what he smelled like, what he was like. Gata trying to get some kind of variation on the food being grilled, pulls out some salmon from his backpack and asks Mike to put it on the grill. Of course, Mike doesn't want to put it on the grill because he doesn't know how long that salmon's been in the backpack. So I can put backpack salmon on the grill. And then, of course, Els, huge fan. Els is a huge fan of Benny Blanco, but crushed when Dave tells him that, like, oh, yeah, he's heard your beats. Kind of giving him pumping that ego a little bit and then telling him that he hates him. His beats suck because they're too white. So Els is a bit crushed, probably why he doesn't mind going to watch the football game with Allie at the bar. And then there's a hilarious callback to the milking table when Mike goes to put the pitcher of lemonade down on their picnic table, and it just sinks right through that hole in the table. Hilarious moment for anybody that forgot that episode. I think it was like episode 2 or 3. But great callback to the milking table. Cut to Allie and Els at the bar, already drinking, a little bit tipsy. Allie wanting to get browned out. Right? Just both. She's curious. She asks Els how popular or how likely it is for Dave to get as popular as he thinks he's going to be. Because Dave believes that he is like Kanye level, quote unquote, talented, which I don't know if Kanye is the pinnacle of that. A lot of people consider him to be. including Dave. But Els is like, yeah, either he's going to be that, or he's going to be, or he's either going to or he's not. He doesn't really have an answer. He's going to be like either the guy that succeeds or he's going to be the guy that cries about failing. And then this Els goes to get a drink, and some other, random bro dude shows up, trying to like talk shit to Allie, like in a flirting way about football because she's wearing a jersey, and he makes a reference that's inaccurate. And she calls him on this inaccurate reference and puts him in his place, so he gets butthurt and is trying to defend his honor of stupidity by going in more, where it's like he started off being a jerk and he just kind of doubles down on being a jerk, which a lot of bro dudes, that's kind of like their game plan in most situations. But Els diffused it perfectly. I mean, Allie was holding her own. This guy was just dumb and just stupid. And she put him in his place effortlessly. But Els comes in and diffuses it perfectly, pretending to be on that guy's side, talking shit to Allie, like even harder. And, they chest bump and the bro dude leaves. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. And cut to Dave back at home, getting all prepped for the party, having like fictional conversations one after the other, as most people do. They're in their shower. You're in your head having like these fantasy conversations, either about something that's about to happen, or you're going over a conversation that you've already had, trying to correct, like think of all the ways you could have handled it better. But Dave is having all these fantasy conversations with all these famous people that he thinks he's going to meet and how he's going to talk to him, what he's going to talk to him about. Very funny as he's cleaning up, trimming his pubes, taking a shower, getting ready to go. So Dave shows up to the party, and again, for a second time, Benny Blanco comes in with another epic "Somebody Suck Me." Just 2 grand slams back to back. Like, you want to talk about a character just making waves immediately. It's great. It was great. Another epic "Somebody Suck Me." Bieber never showed up. Apparently, it's common for him to throw these parties and just not want to show up. And it's just like, he just is bored. It's like it's not something he's into. Which makes sense. If you're not somebody that's like into fame, like the fact that you're famous isn't necessarily, and especially for somebody like Bieber, who's like grew up being famous, who's like famous as a child, like you'd want to detach from that in some ways so you can try and live a normal life and not be somebody who is like, because there's so many famous people that are like so up their own ass about how famous that they are that they think they're special. And I'm sure Justin Bieber in a lot of moments thinks he's special, because he is. I mean, on some level, at least he's a talented artist. But there's people that are famous for being famous. And one of those people, one of their siblings, is at this party, which I did not recognize who it was. Had no idea what this person looked like. Have heard the name, but I had no idea what Kourtney Kardashian looked like. But she's at this party. just some talking to some other person that I didn't recognize. But Dave sits down, they have a little conversation. And they have this, conversation about, so I forget how it came up. Like, I want to say Dave, like, trying to sympathize, like, if I could give birth to a baby, I would. And then Kourtney Kardashian's like, oh, a man did give birth. And she, like, he doesn't agree, obviously. There's just, like, physical things that aren't present in men that would allow for a baby to give birth. So she looks it up on her phone, and it was a trans man. Which, of course, yes. Is that a man? Yes. But for his point, somebody who is born with the male genitalia and male biology function, like this area is a different model, was born with different accessories than the other model that people can be born in. And you can be the different gender. You can be whatever you want in this world, as far as I'm concerned. But his argument on some levels holds up, but on some levels you could say she was right. And, of course, the fact that her dad became trans or came out as trans added another, just another layer of comedy to that whole interaction. But I had no idea who she was. I literally had to rewind it. It was like, which Kardashian was it? Because I know there's a bunch of sisters. And Dave asked, like, an interesting question. It's like, would you, about fame and her family? And she's happy that she was able to become famous with her family. She likes the fact that they have that common bond between them, which makes sense. But like, as far as a famous family, I mean, fame is disgusting in general, in my opinion. And there's a lot of famous people that don't really contribute. They're like famous for being famous. They're like not even reality TV stars. And a lot of them hopped on this trend of this quote unquote leaked sex tape stuff, which is bullshit. Like it is like they have the same distributors of same people film these things. It's like anyway. I don't want to get too into my dislike of the Kardashians or even Kanye. The fact that Dave is a huge fan of Kanye is a bummer because I disagree, and I don't think I disagrry with Kanye that he's a genius. I'm sure he's highly creative, but he's also he has mental health issues, severe mental health issues, and isn't a very good person, and also supports somebody who's trying to be the first American dictator. So, forgive me if I'm not a fan of Kanye and the Kardashians. But yeah, just not at all recognized her when she was, but I can understand why Dave would be excited to not only have her in the show, but also to have a conversation, his character to have a conversation with her. Els and Allie crashed the party. They're both drunk, both wasted. Dave apologizes to Allie for not inviting her. He's like, I didn't. The romantic ideal of what it was going to be versus the reality of it was very different, which is generally true with a lot of things. Most people have a very romantic ideal of what a thing is until they actually experience it and then realize that the reality of the thing is much different. And Dave apologizes to Allie, which she's surprised. She's happily surprised that he did so easily, so because he loves her. He does. And they're a great couple. And it's fun to see their relationship grow as Dave, and seeing Dave try to juggle that, try to manage a relationship while also trying to become a a famous rapper to get his career off the ground. While he's talking to Allie, Kourtney Kardashian is leaving and says goodbye to Dave, which, you know, Allie flips out. Also, she's bummed that Bieber isn't there. Els was able to confront Benny, whether he remembers it or not, about him telling him his beats suck. And Benny offers to give him his number so he can send him, or, you know, his information so Els can send him beats that don't suck. If he has beats that don't suck, why don't you prove it? So that's nice of Benny, despite the fact that it has to be so... When, like, there's nothing more stressful than when you have family or friends that come into a situation and kind of ruin it. Like the stress level that Dave must have had on some level that I would have had if my friends showed up wasted to a party where I'm like super excited to be around all these people, because it's like it's my first taste of what it's going to be like being famous or whatever. The stress that I would be experiencing would be huge. And Dave seemed to be taking it very well. But definitely a stressful situation, especially when Els, who's wasted, is starting to pick on Marshmello, which I didn't know. Again, I don't know DJs, but obviously I do now. The giant marshmallow head with the X'd out eyes. But I've, like, play me their music. I don't know. But that's me. I'm ignorant. I'm stupid. I don't know. I have opinions on things. Make it easy for people to not really care about my opinions on things because I'm so ignorant. But either way, that's how the episode ends. Things moving along smooth for Dave. Els getting another potential opportunity. He can't, he got vocal to talked a little bit with Trippie Redd in previous episode. I think it was the last episode, showing him some beats. So it's like he's progressing as well. And we'll see if this connection with Benny has any future to it. So everything's going good. And we're introduced to this new character, Benny Blanco, who is amazing, who by far has done not one, but two of the most epic Somebody Suck Me's in the history of the show, which not a vast history of that bit. But either way, a great episode. And then next week is going to be episode 9, not the last episode, one episode before the final episode of season 1, which I will be going into season 2 immediately after. But next week is episode 9, Allie's Toast. So we'll see what happens in that episode next week, next Tuesday. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.